Almost exactly 1 year ago, I started renting out my camper van on platforms like Outdoorsy and RV Share. And for those of you who don't know what those platforms are, they're very similar to Turo and Airbnb, but instead of being for cars and for houses, they're for recreational vehicles like RVs and camper vans. And so in this video, I'm going to be doing a 1-year review of our camper van and what we've experienced renting it out on Outdoorsy and RV Share. And I'm going to be breaking down what I like, what I don't like, how much money the camper van has made or cost over the course of the last year, and I'm also going to be talking about whether or not this is a worthwhile side hustle. So if you're somebody who has been interested in getting a camper van or renting out an RV on Outdoorsy and RV Share, this would be an excellent video for you. Or if you're just somebody who's curious into how this business model works. So let's get started. Now, I'm wearing my glasses in today's video because I am in the process of getting LASIK, so they actually require you to wear glasses instead of contacts for your consultation and leading up to the LASIK, so that is why I am wearing these today. They are my actual reading glasses. I've been wearing contacts for like 20 years, and I'm finally looking at getting it fixed, so I will be wearing these for the next few videos. Now, I bought my camper van back in 2020, and when I bought it, it was a normal passenger van. It had seats, interior trim, everything. We bought this van for around $25,000, and at the time I purchased, it had 15,000 miles on it. As far as the timing of the purchase, it truthfully couldn't have been better because shortly after we purchased this van, the prices of vans, particularly cargo vans, absolutely went through the roof. And there was a period of time where we could have sold our camper van for about $60,000 to $70,000 just bare without us doing anything to it, purely because cargo vans at the time were incredibly hard to find. That isn't really the case anymore, but cargo vans are still significantly more expensive today than they were back in 2020. And so as a result, the timing of our van purchase was absolutely perfect. And if we wanted to buy this van today, or even 6 months after we made the purchase, we probably wouldn't have been able to because it just wouldn't have made sense financially. The van is pretty basic in the sense that it doesn't have a toilet or a shower, but it's perfect for what we needed. It features a short queen bed, 3 sets of upper cabinets, which we used for food, plates, silverware storage. We also have 3 sets of lower cabinets, which are used for plumbing, battery, and then a third, which is used for the RV fridge, which has a surprisingly large amount of space. The van is off-grid. There is running water, which is supplied by a 25-gallon water tank, and the fridge, water pump, lights are all run by solar, which charges 2 large batteries. The van is a high roof, which is very nice, so we can actually stand up with plenty of headspace. In the back of the van, we have a garage area, which is just storage. We can use it for things like luggage, our bikes, things like that. While we don't have a shower or a toilet, we do have a portable toilet and shower for emergency situations, which neither HP or myself or guests have ever used, and we also have the van equipped with cooking supplies in the back as well. All in, including the van and all materials and costs, cost $35,000 to build out the van. At the time we purchased it, it had 15,000 miles. Today, it has about 55,000 miles. Now, before we dive into what I do like about the camper van, I first want to mention that in addition to our camper van, we also owned a 29-foot towable RV for a little bit over a year. We did use this RV for personal use a couple of times, but it did spend the majority of its time being rented out, also on Outdoorsy and RV Share, so the same platforms as this camper van. The RV featured a full-fledged kitchen, 1 bed, a pull-up couch, shower, and it also had to be towed by a truck. And the reason why I mention it for this video is because I am going to draw a few comparisons from the camper van to the RV, because oftentimes whenever people look at possibly buying something to rent out on RV Share and Outdoorsy, there is the debate of should you get something that drives itself or should you get something that you can tow. And so I want to talk a little bit about my experience with both. So first, what I do like. Our camper van is the perfect example of mixing business with pleasure. And from a personal standpoint, I absolutely love our camper van. I always wanted a camper van. I traveled a lot with my dad growing up, and we went to a lot of national parks throughout my life. And I remember going to national parks and driving cross country and seeing people in these self-converted camper vans. And I always thought it was the coolest thing. But I also always knew myself well enough to know that I would never allow for myself to convert and buy a camper van for the sake of only using it personally. It just wouldn't make financial sense. And so I always thought that getting a camper van would be one of those things that I always wanted to do, but I would never actually do. And that was until I discovered Outdoorsy and RV Share, at which point I decided it would be the perfect opportunity to finally get to own my own camper van. And so I ended up convincing my then boyfriend, now husband, HP, to help me convert one, and we ended up purchasing one about a year later. This year alone, HP and I've used the camper van for a total of 6 weeks. We got married in it last October. We went to California, eloped in Yosemite National Park, went to Vegas, Utah, New Mexico, and Arizona. Last May, May, we went to Big Bend National Park and Mexico in it. And just a couple of weeks ago, we went on a 10-day road trip to Vermont where we saw the fall foliage. And throughout the process, we went across about 10 different states. I absolutely love it. The van is great because it allows for you to travel for these more extended period of times in a really cost-effective way. It also allows for us to bring our dog, and the best thing is our camper van is self-contained. So you can actually park it anywhere and utilize the water, the electricity, and you don't have to worry about going to a campsite, hooking into utilities, and things like that. This was actually my biggest complaint about the 29-foot RV, and it's one thing that I don't really understand about RVs in general. Whenever you have a large RV that you have to tow, you can't just park it anywhere. You do have to go to a campsite, you have to make sure there are utilities included, and that's something that I really didn't like. I hated the process of towing the RV. I felt like campgrounds were extremely expensive. I hated the process of setting up and taking down the RV. The entire thing was just more of a task than it was something that I enjoyed. But with the van, you can set everything up before your trip, and then whenever you're driving, you can simply pull into a Love's parking lot and park there for the night to sleep. And in order to set up to go to sleep, all you have to do is put up a couple of shades. It takes about 5 minutes, and then the takedown in the morning is even shorter. The discreetness of the van allows for you to park virtually anywhere, and over the course of the last year, HP and I have slept in state parks and parking lots and truck stops, even just off of the side of the road. And because our van just looks like a normal everyday van, nobody really thinks anything of it. And because the van is all powered by solar, while we're parked in these parking lots, we can have access to electricity, heating, and water. I just absolutely love it. And this ease of use is absolutely translated to renters, because whenever we had our 29-foot RV, the entire process of getting a renter prepared to take the RV was a huge task in itself. People who rented the RV needed to have a truck capable of towing it. They had to have a special brake controller, and they also really needed the experience of towing it in the first place. But even that aside, you had to also have the experience of operating the RV. And because of that, whenever we did a key exchange with the RV, it was a multi-hour process. We had to do a really extensive walkthrough showing them how everything worked and what they could do to troubleshoot things if there was an issue. And once the RV was picked up, we were sort of on call throughout the duration of their trip to make sure that if something did go wrong, we were available to answer any questions. Now, we did find ways to mitigate those calls and issues. For example, we implemented a QR code process, which is a process that we took where we recorded tutorial videos walking guests through different aspects of the RV. We then printed out QR code stickers, we placed them throughout the RV, and that way if a guest had a question, they could scan the QR code and it would take them to that video. We also had a written operational manual as well. And so while this did mitigate the issues that guests had, the guests still did have a lot of issues because the RV was pretty complicated, especially for someone that has never used one. But with the camper van, it is extremely easy because the operation is relatively straightforward. The van drives like a normal car. You don't have to do anything with the electricity because you don't have to plug into utilities. And with the water, all you have to do is make sure to drain and fill up the tank when needed. The entire walkthrough can be done in about 15 minutes, and over the course of the last year, we've had virtually no complaints or questions at all because it is so incredibly easy to use. And because of this ease of use, we've had a wide variety of renters rent our camper van over the last year, from single women to married couples, older couples, mother and daughter duos, just a ton of variety of different people, which I love. Additionally is the size. With our 29-foot RV, not only was it a pain to transport and move, but we also had to store it at a special RV facility. But with the camper van, it's extremely easy to drive, even I can do it, and we actually store it right in front of our house, because it's a normal car, though a bit on the large side. So this is what I love about the camper van. Personal use, the broad appeal, and the ease of use are all of the factors that I love most about owning the camper van. But now on to what I don't love. The van is not as passive as our Turo cars. We do meet all of our guests in person to give them a walkthrough of the van, and while this isn't a huge deal because we aren't doing 1 or 2 day rentals with the van, in fact, our minimum trip length is about 3 days, and the majority of our trips are over a week, with the longest being 2.5 months. But this does mean that whenever a guest is picking up or dropping off the van, we do have to make sure that we're available. And while it's not a huge deal, it can be inconvenient. Again, this is something that is to be expected given the nature of renting out a camper van versus renting out a car, but again, this is just something that I don't love. The ROI of the van is also not nearly as good as our Turo fleet. Now, I'm going to be going into this a little bit more detail in this video, but on a dollar per dollar basis, our Turo fleet makes a lot more than the van. And for this reason, we most likely won't be adding another camper van anytime soon unless we find a deal that we can't turn down. And lastly is the mileage. Even though our camper van isn't rented out nearly as much as our Turo cars, in fact, our Turo vehicles have a utilization of anywhere between 85 and 90% per car. Our camper van only has a utilization of about 30%. Our camper van has a lot more miles being put on it on a yearly basis. This year alone, 40,000 miles have been put on the van. And whenever we look at the lifespan of this camper van, I do have a bit of a concern with how long this is going to be last being rented out to other people. The reason is because if a van has 50,000 miles on it, I feel very confidently that somebody could take this van and drive to Canada in it. In fact, we virtually just went to Canada in the van with no issues at all. But is that same thing going to be able to be said whenever the van has 100 or 150,000 miles? And truthfully, I don't know. And at our current pace, this van could reach that point in 2 to 3 years. And so whenever we look at the longevity of a camper van versus the longevity of a car on Turo, you are going to have less of a lifespan with a camper van than you will with a traditional car, just because if people are renting the van, they're probably going a far distance. Again, this isn't a huge complaint, but I do think it's something to keep in mind whenever you're somebody looking to potentially make this type of investment, is that the lifespan for a camper van, I believe, is going to be quite a bit shorter than that of a regular car. And I think that at the same time, the cost of a camper van will be quite a bit higher. And so these are things that you should be thinking about. And while I don't think it's a deal breaker for me, I think it could potentially be for you depending on your situation. And while I don't think this is a big deal, it is certainly something that I don't love. Now, my complaints that I have for the camper van are a bit minor, all things considered, but I do think they are worth noting. But even then, the pros still far outweigh the cons. But now on to what you guys really want to know, which is the money. Now, this van costs $35,000 to build. This includes the cost of the actual van, all of the parts, materials, but it does not include labor. Truthfully, I don't even know how much the total cost would be if we included our labor, but we built it ourselves. In fact, it was mostly my husband HP, so we're not going to take labor into account. Today, if we would have built this exact same van, it probably would have cost closer to $50,000 because vans have just gotten significantly more expensive. Now, this van is paid off as of today, so we don't have a monthly payment for it. We do store it at home, so there are no storage costs. We insure the van through a service called Roamly, which is basically a car-sharing friendly insurance company for RVs and camper vans. And that costs about $70 per month for full coverage. We change the oil about every 5,000 miles or prior to a long trip, and this costs about $35, and HP does it, so the labor's free. And the tires were replaced last year. We actually upgraded them to more beefier off-road tires. And while they won't need to be replaced anytime soon, whenever they do need to be replaced, it'll cost about $1,300. In the last year, after expenses have been taken into account, the van has made a total of $14,316.75, which comes out to an average of $1,193 per month, which truthfully is something that I'm really happy with. But now begs the question of, is this van something that's worth doing? And if you're somebody who's looking to make extra money, is buying a camper van a worthwhile investment? And truthfully, I think the answer is it sort of depends. For me, the van was 100% a passion project that I was able to make a reality due to the fact that I could use the van to make money. I probably would have never purchased a van if I personally wasn't interested in owning a van. And as far as the 29-foot RV, the reason why we got that was a similar reason. We purchased that at a time where my family was in a bit of a transitional period. I traveled quite a lot with my sisters and my dad, and at the time, my sister had just had a baby, so it was really difficult to travel our normal types of trips. So we thought possibly getting an RV would be a great solution to that, and it turned out we really didn't like it. So again, the RV was a great personal experiment, and I learned that I don't want to own an RV, which is why I sold it. But with the van, I wanted a van for personal reasons, and I probably won't end up selling it anytime soon because I really enjoy using it. We're able to make money from it. HP and I used it for 6 weeks out of this year, and we're going to continue using it in the future years as well. So for me, the van is 100% worth it. The truth is, if you're looking for something to easily make you as much ROI as possible, I don't think that a camper van is the best vehicle for that. I think that in that case, you're probably better off buying a handful of $5,000 to $7,000 cars and renting those cars out on Turo. But if you're somebody that wants a camper van and you want to be able to use it for personal use, but you want to find a way to justify that purchase, then I think renting out a camper van can be an excellent choice. But I do think that it really depends on what price you pay for the camper van. For us, we self-converted the van, so it was $35,000 all in. But if you were to buy a camper van pre-built, it would probably be significantly more expensive. And if you were to buy a proper camper van RV, it would probably be 70 or 80 grand. And I personally don't think renting out that level of RV is worth it, because the amount of money you make just simply doesn't justify the cost. We rent our $35,000 camper van for between $150 and $175 per day, sometimes even more. But even camper vans that cost 2 or 3 times as much as ours are also renting for around that same price. So you'll really have to pay close attention to how much you're paying for your camper van versus how much that van can be rented out. Another factor is your market. I live in Dallas, which I don't think is the best market for camper vans. It's hot, there's not a lot of scenery, and if somebody wants to go somewhere nice in the camper van, they're going to have to drive quite far. If you were to live somewhere more naturey and more scenic, I think a camper van could do significantly better. But in addition to the $14,000 that our camper van has already made, we also have $6,000 in pending bookings as well. For around the holidays of this year, spring break of next year, and next next summer. So for me, the camper van was 100% worth it. It accomplished everything I wanted out of it. It allows for me to have a camper van for personal use. We use it a ton, all things considered. It makes some great side income. It was a huge tax benefit. And truthfully, I just don't think it could have worked out much better. And while we haven't made our total investment back on this car yet, we probably will within the next year to a year and a half, and we don't have any plans on selling this camper van anytime soon, if ever. So there you guys have it, my 1-year review of our self-converted camper van. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.